He was just a really fun guy to be around. He embodied like what life is all about. I don't know, something's not right. So they took him to the doctor, and that's when they diagnosed him with a brain tumor. It was heartbreaking because he was just my strong dad. Then he wasn't. They started playing the music to walk me down the aisle, and literally my mom and I looked at each other, and I grabbed one side of him and my mom grabbed the other side of him, and we literally walked my dad down the aisle. Everyone was crying. Everyone. They were happy for me, but they were also like heartbroken for me too. It was one of the most happiest, saddest times in my life, but I'm so grateful that he was there. In 2011, my husband and I were trying to start a family. He just was like, we're going to the hospital. I don't care. We're going to the hospital. This is weird. I went septic. I was definitely circling the drain, if you will. I was clinging onto life. And that is when I vividly remember talking, seeing, hugging my dad. I just remember saying to him, like, I want to come with you.
Welcome to Next Realm, Beautiful Stories from Beyond, a show that explores the profound and heartwarming stories of individuals who've experienced messages from their departed loved ones. I'm your host, Amber Rasmussen, and today's guest is my former classmate and lifelong friend, Amaia. Her story is incredibly powerful, and while bound to pull at your heartstrings, it will leave you with chills and inspired beyond measure. Today we're talking about her father and the profound way that his spirit showed up for her during life's most challenging times.
He was born in 1945 in Spain, and it's in the Basque region, which is basically the northern part of Spain, close to the French border. He had 7 brothers and sisters, grew up on a farm, and he grew up mostly speaking Basque and Spanish, so obviously no English. He joined the Spanish Navy, and he was docked in San Francisco, and that's where he met my mom. They met at a Basque hotel, and she was a waitress, and she's Basque as well, so born in America, but mom and dad are both from Spain. So that was something they had in common. Their cities in Spain are literally 20 minutes apart, and here they are in America, in San Francisco, so instant connection. They got married in Spain, and then they came to live in America, and they started a family, 2 kids, and then they got into the restaurant business because my mom really didn't know what they were going to do. Her husband didn't speak any English. He didn't have a formal education, so they bought into Arctic Circle, and they started that. They basically ran that for several years. My dad learned English by reading books to me and Aitor, my brother. And so it was a slow growing language process for him. He basically learned English by running that restaurant with my mom. And 4 years later, they decided they did love the restaurant business, and they wanted to run their own business and not be part of a franchise. So they bought a place in Cornelius, which now is known or was known as Basco's Burgers.
There was a field, and I lived in these little apartments with my family, and we would walk across the field and go get a Basco burger growing up.
Mm-hmm.
That was the staple, and it had the best fry sauce ever.
I know. People used to
I totally remember this.
Go crazy over the fry sauce. I have lots of friends that give memories of their little brothers, running away from home and going to get a milkshake at Basco's, and, just funny stories that people would tell about Basco's. And so many of my friends worked there. My brother worked there. I worked there. It was kind of a bad thing to have your parents run a restaurant, because if you were home and somebody called in sick, guess who was going into work? It was me or my brother. It was really cute because my dad, one of the things about him is he loved to give people nicknames. So people that were like regulars that would come in all the time, he would give them nicknames, like he'd like, here comes Super Cheese. One of our cheeseburgers was called a Super Cheese. Here comes Super Cheese, or, so-and-so, the Donut Man. And he just had all these nicknames for all the people that were coming and going in Tabasco's, and our family too, like his nieces and nephews, and everybody had a nickname. And
I love that.
Yeah.
Did they know that they had a nickname, or was it just between you guys?
No, they knew it. Yeah.
They did.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they knew it, and they were fine with it. And so they ran that for 19 years. And that was kind of my dad's legacy, really. I mean, he came from nothing. I mean, literally a suitcase. He was just a really fun guy to be around. He was always laughing, joking. He was just a great person. He embodied like what life is all about. And it was family and good food and just having fun and laughing. And he just had a great aura about him, great personality. Everyone always was smiling and laughing around him. And I always remember that. And he loved his family immensely. He was very dedicated to his family back in Spain and us.
Well, I love that he really kept you guys tied to his cultural.
Yeah. In fact, this is kind of funny. So we lived in Cornelius, and then there was the only grocery store was Safeway. And so basically on his way home, he would, like in Spain, they take their lunch around 2:00. And so, here in America, we eat at 12. And so he would work in the morning from about 6 a.m. And then he would get through lunch hour. And then around 1:45, when lunch hour is kind of dying down, he would leave and go to Safeway, get his French bread. And then he would go home and make his lunch. Like, he'd make, bacon and eggs and French bread, or he'd make a tortilla, or a tortilla is like an egg potato mixture. It's not like a Mexican tortilla. It's a little bit different. But he would make his like traditional Basque lunch, and then he would have a siesta, and he would take a nap from about 3:00 to 5. And then he would check in at Basco's later to see how dinner hour was going. So he kept on that schedule, even in America. He did that every day. So like when I would,
oh my gosh.
So when I would come home from school, I knew my dad was taking a nap. Like I was like, yep.
Siesta. Hey man, let's implement that in the U.S.
Totally,
I'm down
right?
for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, I knew like if I had friends come over, I'm like, okay, you guys have to be quiet. My dad's taking a nap. And they're just like, what? Like, that's
so weird. We don't do that.
Yeah. And I'm like, yep. So he kept his traditions alive regardless of what people thought. He was like, this is the way I'm going to do it. And he did, which is pretty awesome. Of course, when we were younger, we were probably like embarrassed or, oh my gosh, like I'm sure that we were not super embracing it, right? When you're 13 years old, but
right.
I appreciate
different perspective as an adult.
Yeah. I appreciate it now for sure. In 2003 is when he started to have some kind of symptoms relating to being dizzy, and his vision wasn't really good. He used to play racquetball, and he was starting to have some balance issues. I remember one time when he came home from racquetball, I walked into the kitchen and he was pouring a glass of orange juice, and the orange juice cup was completely full and orange juice was going everywhere. He was just filling it. And I'm like, Dad, what are you doing? I called him Aita, which is dad in Basque. And I'm like, Aita, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm just getting some orange juice. I'm like, looking at him like, there's orange juice all over the place. Like your cup's full. So then, that's when we kind of told my mom, like, I don't know, something's not right. So they took him to the doctor, and that's when they diagnosed him with a brain tumor, astrocytoma tumor. And my mom and I did a bunch of research, and it didn't look good.
Amaia's father battled brain cancer for the next year, growing weaker and weaker. As her family joined together during this trying time, Amaia was also in the midst of planning her wedding and was faced with making a big decision.
was heartbreaking because he was just my strong dad, and then he wasn't. I was going to get married, and Dad got diagnosed with the tumor. So then it was like, okay, originally we were going to get married in Hawaii in November. My mom's like, I don't want to sound doomsday or anything, but you might want to move up this wedding, because what if something happens and Dad's not at the wedding? I'm like, yeah, you're right. I didn't want to look at it that way. So it was around March that we were planning the wedding, and we were going to get married in November. And I remember my mom telling me that. And then we went and looked at a bunch of different places. And the place that I decided I loved was an outdoor venue, blah, blah, blah. Well, it's March, and I'm wanting to plan a wedding in the summer. And she like laughed and said, you're talking about this summer? And I said, yeah. She's, oh my gosh, we're booked out for like 3 summers. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. So I left, and I was driving home, and she said, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe this. I said, what? And she said, we just had a cancellation, and it's kind of a sad thing. The husband's getting deployed into the Army, and that's why they have to cancel. And what do you think? And I said, well, when is it? And she says, June 19th. And I'm like, oh my gosh, June 19th is my mom and dad's anniversary. So I was like, what? And she's like, yes, it's on Saturday. It's June 19th. And I'm just thinking, oh my God. So like I called my mom, like freaking out. I'm like, can you believe it? And she's like, yeah, I can believe it. Like, why not? That's amazing. It's just meant to be. And so we got married on June 19th on my mom and dad's 33rd anniversary.
And he was able to attend
yes,
and everything?
Did he walk you down the aisle? He was pretty sick. So, I have tons of memories of my dad, but one of my most vivid memories of when he was alive is at my wedding. So he was pretty sick. He was kind of shuffling really slowly. And the day of my wedding, my mom called and said, I don't think he's going to be able to walk you down the aisle. He's so weak. He's probably going to have to be in a wheelchair. And he was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. So then we didn't even rehearse it. It just kind of happened. We didn't even talk about how it was going to happen. So they started playing the music to walk me down the aisle. And literally my mom and I looked at each other, and I grabbed one side of him and my mom grabbed the other side of him. And we literally walked my dad down the aisle. And I remember looking out to all of our guests, and I just thought, there was not a dry eye. Everyone was crying, everyone. And it wasn't like, oh my gosh, we're so happy, Amaia's getting married. It was more like this moment that I'll never forget that I shared with all those people that was like, this is amazing, you're getting married, but this is so sad. Your dad, he's not going to be here for very long. He's dying. And everyone knew it. I looked out into the crowd, and I could see that in everybody's eyes. They were happy for me, but they were also heartbroken for me too. It was one of the most happiest, saddest times in my life, but I'm so grateful that he was there. And yeah, it burns into my brain, that memory. But I have a gazillion good memories. But that one was just very special, because I don't think a lot of people get that moment where before they lose someone that they know how special that moment is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm crying.
Oh, no.
Listening to it. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. This is that's not what I meant to do. But it made me cry.
Oh God, I'm so sorry. I know. That's how it was though.
Wow.
That's literally how it was. It was, it was like me and my mom were just trying to be so strong in the moment. But looking back at it, it's such a good memory for me, because it's so vivid and it's so profound. It's a moment in time where you're just that you're never going to get this moment back. And it's priceless. It's absolutely priceless. And it wasn't about me, right? I'm getting married and my dad's not walking me down the aisle. I'm literally, my mom and I are walking him down the aisle, and it wasn't about me. It wasn't about me at all. It was about our families and just being together.
That had to have been such an emotional day.
Yeah.
Just, wow.
It was tough. And then, so my dad died 2 months later. I mean, imagine my mom too. I think, she just had her daughter get married, and then her husband dies. And, it's all these things, huge life altering moments happening all really close together. And I think it was very hard. After he passed, my mom had a really hard time. So she was struggling. Like, she just could not understand. She just didn't know how she was going to live without him. She needed to know where he was. Was he okay? She needed answers. And so she had a friend who's had some, psychic tendencies, and she put her in contact with this guy who actually lived in Roseburg. She contacted him and paid him basically, and he came to her house. He has no information. So even in the obituary, because later I was kind of like trying to figure out like how he knew stuff. Like, how did he know that? So I went back, and there's no way he could have known the things he knew. And I was very cynical. Like, I was like, okay, Mom, this is a waste of money. This is a waste of time. This seems super hokey to me. I know, but I went along with it because I knew she needed answers. He came to the house, and he kind of was like slow moving, it was almost like he was being like, I don't want to say possessed, but he just acted odd. And he said, just give me a second. And he kept saying that. And we're just like, what the heck? And so then he like kneels down, and he's like on the ground, and he says, my head hurts really bad. My head hurts so bad. I can't even tell you how bad my head hurts. And me and my mom are like, what is this guy doing? And then he like looks up to my mom and me, and he goes, Joe died of a brain tumor. And me and my mom are like, what? How could he know that? So there was that. And then there were some other things that he said that were just only my mom and I would know. And then another funny thing that happened that was kind of weird is someone was supposed to come, and it was actually my sister-in-law, and she didn't come. And he said the reason why she's not coming is because she knows there's some things that I might say, and there's trouble in the marriage. Well, a year later, my brother and her got divorced. And that never crossed my mind until later when we looked over like the notes that my mom wrote down from when he was at her house. So it was just like things like that. And I was just kind of like, but the brain tumor and then the headache, and he was just struggling. He literally got like physically sick. He said it was one of the most intense sessions he's ever had. And he's never had anybody come through so hard. It like overwhelmed him almost. But there were a lot of things that he said that resonated with my mom and I that, I mean, if I wasn't before, after.
So prior, you weren't really into the woo.
Not
the woo.
Not so
the
much.
Woo.
Yeah, not so much.
How did your religion play a part in your belief system as far as like mediums and signs from the other side or anything like that?
No, I was brought up Catholic. My mom and dad, made us go to church. I actually have 2 aunts that are nuns in Spain. Our family was just brought up very Catholic. But no, my mom has always been very, like, she believes in the afterlife. She believes in, that you come back in different forms and energy. And so she's talked a little bit to me about that, but no, I don't think religion had a big part in it. It was more maybe my mom, just the way she kind of believed that things are energy and there's things around us. And sometimes people think coincidences, and other people that are more awake don't see coincidences. They see them as signs. It didn't resonate with me until after my dad passed away, because that's when I would see signs. That's when, for instance, at my wedding, we danced to Because You Loved Me. And after he died, there'd be so many times that song would come on, doctor's office, dentist's office, on the radio, where it would be like, a radio station that song wouldn't normally play. I was like, that's random. And then I'm like, is it random? Or is it just my dad's way of just saying, hey, I'm here, I'm around? Another thing were ladybugs. Anytime ladybugs would land on us, I don't know why it came to be ladybugs. I think my husband, a ladybug landed on him on the same day a ladybug landed on me, and we both just randomly said that. And then we were like, my husband said, your dad came to visit me today. And I was like, what? And he goes, yeah, a ladybug landed on my bag and then landed on my hand later. And I just decided that was your dad. That was your dad saying, hey, I'm okay. I'm out here. I'm free. I'm watching over you guys. And so that was our thing, ladybug. So anytime we see a ladybug, we're just like, hi, Dad. Hi, Aitha. Hey, what's up? So it's really light to us, like it's happy. We try to look for anything, and the number 19 is like,
I was going to say, wasn't there a number?
Yeah, it's
that you say shut up?
Yeah, it's a bit, it's a lot. It's too much to be a coincidence, So, I mean, obviously my mom's born on the 19th. My dad's born on the 19th. They got married on the 19th. I got married on the 19th. We've sold houses that we didn't mean to on the 19th. The 19th came up for my wedding, like that was a perfect indication of the 19 popping up. And another time the 19 popped up, it was kind of like a hidden 19, but it was like a little mystery for me to find out. I think my dad did it on purpose, just for us to like give us a little, something to figure out. He died on August 5th, 2004. So I was like, August 5th, like that means nothing. Like I can't even, like, there's nothing. There's no 19, there's no nothing. Maybe a couple days after he passed away, I like sit up in the middle of the night, August 5th, 2004. So I'm like, okay, August 8 plus August 5th plus 5 plus 2, 2004. It's 19. So if you take
oh my goodness,
August 5th, 2004, and you add up all those numbers, it's 19. Yeah. So
it's like after the fact is when you kind of notice all these things I've noticed. Because my nephew is the same way. He died on May 23rd. And then after the fact, we're like, oh my gosh, grandpa also died on May 23rd. Yep. I think it was my great grandma died on the 23rd, different month, but the 23, just my dog died on the 23rd, both dogs, I believe.
Yeah.
Just 23 over and over and over. I'm like, what is it?
But when it happens,
crazy.
When it happens, you're not aware of it. Like you're not thinking, August 5th. Oh yeah. Like, cause you're kind of searching for that answer. And some people would say you could make that out of anything, but I don't agree with that, because that number adds up to 19. You can't dispute it. So I'm not like searching for stuff. It's just there, but you have to find it.
There's a show on Netflix. Do you know who Tyler Henry is?
Yes.
He's a kind of well-known medium, has a show on Netflix, but I was watching his new show and he was calling it meaningful coincidences. And I was like, that's exactly what that is. Like there's a difference between just things being coincidental, but then there's these meaningful coincidences that are spot on. Exactly. Like, you know, exactly that I've never heard that song played before. And now all of a sudden it's playing all the time.
Yep.
Or that number, or, you know, like for me, it was, I'd never seen dragonflies, and then all of a sudden dragonflies and hummingbirds everywhere. It was like, that's not normal. Like, that's not what I've been used to before. Like, so like the meaningful coincidences, that has such a powerful meaning behind it. But
and you're more,
and it's like, you know, and you know too. I don't know how to describe it. I was like, there's just this inner knowing.
Yep. That's so true. Because you're just more, I think you're just more aware. When you're more aware, you just see things with like a broader lens. You're not just so like hyper focused on one thing. You're just a little more open. And people that are a little more open, things kind of come to them a little more. You know what I mean?
Did the signs kind of ease up after the initial few months after he passed, or were they just kind of ongoing?
I feel like they were, and this is kind of a weird statement, but I feel like they were more when I needed them more. Does that make sense? Like when I was going through a really tough time, or I was just really struggling, I feel like it was more. And then when I was doing good, or I was just, you know, more independent and doing my own thing, I felt like it was less. So I don't know if that's a coincidence or not, but I just feel like it was when I needed it the most is when I got the most signs.
I think they just initially want to make sure that you're okay.
Yeah.
And that I'm here. I'm just in a different realm. Like I'm always here. I can, you know, it's just different. It's a little transition from this energy to that energy.
Yep.
And now go ahead.
Oh, and we talk about him a lot, you know, like, I mean, we talk about him almost, I mean, there isn't a dinner that goes by that we don't mention his name. And it's been 19 years. I mean, this is kind of a fun fact, or just a fun little thing. The guy,
19 years. It's the 19.
It is. It has been 19 years. The guy who did the psychic reading for us, my mom contacted him about a month ago and said, you know, I just have this like itch. I don't know why, but I just want to meet with him again. So we did, and it was just over a phone call or like a FaceTime, and it was really good. He's not doing as much work with that as much. He still is getting readings, and he's still getting the things coming through, but he said that he's not doing it as much. But he said that ever since he met with our family, he says, Joe has come back to me so many times. And we're like, what do you mean? And he's like, I just mean that he has made me be a better dad, or be a better husband, or he's made me at times where I was kind of struggling and not doing the things I needed to be doing. I always thought about your family and how strong you guys were as a family and how much you guys loved him. And it made me want to be like him. And so 19 years ago, that has stuck with that guy. And he literally says, Joe's like my guardian angel. Like I talk to him all the time. And he didn't even know him, right?
Oh my goodness.
Like he didn't even know him.
He make me cry again.
I know.
Oh God, Amaia.
But that's what's so cool about it. It's like, just from knowing how much we loved my dad, this guy has to be legit. Like his family loves him so much, and he's such a good dad and honorable man, you know, so he looked up to this man he's never met in his whole life. And it meant so much to me and my mom.
After the passing of her father, life had to go on, and Amaia and her new husband were ready to take on the next big step in life, growing her family.
So my dad died in 2004, and then I got sick in 2011. So 7 years later, my husband and I were trying to start a family. So I had 2 miscarriages prior, and then we finally got pregnant again. So this would have been my 3rd pregnancy. I was a hairstylist, and I was doing hair, and I was like, oh my gosh, I think I just peed my pants. And I was 19 weeks. And I thought, I don't know what just happened. So I went to the bathroom and nope, I didn't pee my pants, but there's water all over the place. So I told my friend, my coworker, and she's like, yeah, no, that's not good. And so I ended up going to the hospital the next day to get, everything checked. And they kind of said, there's not a lot of movement, so we're not really sure. And so we have to run further tests, on and on. It kind of got dragged out, and they said the pregnancy was not going to be viable, and that basically I was going to have another miscarriage. And that was it. And I went home. I was getting ready to go to bed, and I was kind of acting weird, my husband said. He was like, I was like slow motion. Everything was slow. I was talking slow, and I was trying to cancel my clients for the next day and tell them, I don't think I'm going to be at work tomorrow. He just was like, we're going to the hospital. I don't care. We're going to the hospital. This is weird. So we went to the hospital. From that point on, I don't have a huge recollection of what happened until after. So we went to the hospital, and they tried to get the baby to pass. And after that, I went septic. Everything kind of went dark. I got wheeled into ICU. Body starts shutting down. Once you go septic, it's really hard. I mean, the longer you're septic, the harder it is to get back. They put me in a coma. Everything's kind of like to slow your body down. Let's slow it down. And at that point, that is when I started to, see my dad. And so I was definitely clinging, circling the drain, if you will. I was clinging onto life. That's when I was probably the most touch and go, is when I was in the self-induced coma. And that is when I vividly remember talking, seeing, hugging my dad, having conversations with him. And in the moment, it feels like so real. Like I couldn't determine if it had happened or not. Like in my mind, that really happened. That's how real it is. And I remember what he was wearing. I remember how he looked. He died when he was 58. And when I saw him, when I was laying in the hospital, he was probably about 40, 42. He looked handsome. I remember what he was wearing. He had a gray button shirt. He had gray slacks on. I remember everything so vividly. And I just remember saying to him, I want to come with you. And he said, no, you can't. And I was like, yeah, I want to come with you. And he's like, no, you have to stay. You have to fight. You have to stay here. There's a lot for you to do here. And I just remember being kind of mad at him. No, I don't want to. I don't want to go. I want to stay with you. And that's basically when I was literally deciding if I was going to stay or go. They're delivering the news to my family that I have a 1% chance of living. And if I do, I could be brain dead because, of all the damage. And, my family, my husband, they are just, here's this 35-year-old pregnant woman, and now you're telling me she's going to die. It was just mind-boggling. Nobody could wrap their mind around it. It was confusing. It was crazy. And then that's when I started to get a little bit better. And they did what was called a balloon pump heart surgery on me. So they went in and it's a way to give your heart a break from beating so much. And they did that. My kidneys were shutting down. So they did dialysis. And then I started to slowly, my numbers got better, and they were able to take me off of the vent, the breathing tube. the first thing, they had a psychologist come in and come talk to me. And they said, I don't remember this, but they said the first thing I said was, I'm just so happy to be alive. And they just were like shocked, you know, they were just like, wow, that's crazy to say that. Cause normally you would just say like, what's happening? What am I doing? You know, blah, blah, blah. And I was just pretty calm. And I just said, I'm just so happy to be alive. And then I started asking questions about where's the baby and, you know, things like that. But that took some time. Everyone kind of ignored me for a while. I mean, no one was ready to like tell me the truth about that until I was strong enough. You know, I got stronger and stronger. And at that point, they give you pressors that basically keep your vitals alive. But what happens is it stops blood flow to the rest of your extremities. So it's pretty typical with people that get sepsis, if you don't die, that you could have amputations due to blood flow loss to those extremities. So when I was coming out of it, I'm looking down and I'm seeing my feet are black and my fingertips are black and shriveled up. And I'm like, I was so confused. I'm just like, these don't look like my hands. This doesn't look like my feet. Little by little, I got better and better. And then, you know, the doctors started to come in and talk to my family and me about, okay, so like you've made it, but now we have a whole nother struggle we have to do. And that is that we're going to have to do amputation surgery on both your legs and your fingertips. And you're going to still have to stay on dialysis and, you know, things like that. So long story short, went in on December 19th, 2011, and my surgery was in January 2012 for my amputation surgery. And they did everything at the same time. So they did both legs and 9 fingertips in one surgery. And then I came out of that, and then it was rehabilitation. And then from the recovery, they send you home. And then that's when you start your visits at the prosthetist, and they start, you know, fitting you for prosthetics and that whole thing. So
wow.
Yeah, it was,
that's a lot. That is a lot.
I know. It's a lot. And it's like you just have to get through it. I mean, there's no better way to say that than you literally are just taking it minute by minute, day by day. Just get through it. You can't think too far ahead. I remember having these conversations with my mom, and one of the first things I said to my mom was, I'm so glad Dad's not here to see me like this. I said it would break his heart to see his little girl like sitting here just mutilated and just, you know, just not the person that he knew. And I remember saying to my mom, like, I'm never going to be normal. I'm just going to be a freak. People are going to look at me different, and I'm never going to be Amaia again. I'm never going to be the Amaia that everyone remembers. I proved myself wrong, you know, over years and years and years of work. I know that now he would be so proud of me, you know, like beyond proud of me, just because of the person I have become because of that, you know. And I can only say the person I've become is because of, you know, my upbringing and my family. And I had an awesome mom and dad and such a huge support system. It's been 13 years since that happened. Well, 12 and a half. It's been 12 and a half years since that happened. And I look back on it and it's like somebody else's life. Like I'm talking about someone else's life. It doesn't feel real, you know?
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Question. When you first came to, I know that you were a little bit out of it, clearly. Did you tell people what you saw, that you were with your dad?
Yeah. I mean, I told my mom. The funny thing is, I have a friend, my coworker, she has the ability to sense, and she's just very aware. I guess that's the word I would say. But she told people when I was in the hospital, while I was in the ICU, where not a lot of people were visiting me in ICU, only close family. She said she's with her dad right now, and she's trying to figure out if she wants to stay or not. And she knew things medically that no one knew. You know, she said that, you know, that my kidneys were shutting down, and she knew that she just knew things that weren't common knowledge or common information for people. But she didn't know that about my dad until I talked to her like months and months and months later. And she said to me, you know, I know you were with your dad. And I looked at her and I said, what do you mean? And she says, I know you were talking to your dad when you were in the ICU. And I said, yes, I was. And I mean, she knew it, but the first time we had a conversation was probably 3 months after I was out of the hospital. And I was on a lot of drugs. I mean, I was so doped up, but that stuff was so vivid and so real to me that like nobody can tell me any different. I'm like, that was real. That was a real thing.
I know you were like completely a believer after he initially passed, but then having your own experience, your own kind of near-death experience,
yeah.
Did that change everything altogether? Like your whole entire outlook on life? Like now I know there is something else?
Yeah.
For 100%?
Yeah. I feel like it's not so scary because it didn't feel scary at that time. It felt like I kind of wanted to go there. Like I was kind of like leaning that way. It felt easier. There was a feeling about it. It was like the route I was going to take was going to be way harder, and I didn't want to do it. And it has been hard. So I feel like wherever they are, it's easy. It's not as hard as it is here. Do you know what I mean?
Do you think he knew what you were in store for when you came back, and that was part of your life plan to have these challenges that would change who you are and experience life in a different way and just have a different, more awakened
Well, I think he knew how badly I wanted to be a mom. So I think that that was really big. Like, I think he knew that was one of my life goals, is I wanted to be a mom, and just being myself would help other people. Like, I didn't have to write a book. I didn't have to climb a mountain. I didn't have to run a marathon. I wasn't having to do something. I think he was just saying, like, if you just live your life the way you want to, you're going to inspire people. You're going to show people like you can do anything.
And boy, did she. Amaia fulfilled her lifelong dreams and is continuing to make the most of each and every day here on Earth. Let's hear about what she's been up to and how these experiences changed the way she sees and lives life.
I am a mom. I have 2 little boys. We went through surrogacy to have our boys, and that is my ultimate dream, to be a mom, and I love it. I mean, I'm not going to pretend like it's all rainbows and unicorns. It's hard work, but I love being the person that gets to teach them things. I love having conversations with my kids on the way home from school. I love being able to tell them, you know, when people look different or act different, that they might be going through something, and to have a little kindness for them. And I love that I look at life so differently. My perspective is so different because of what I went through that I can't help but pass that on to my kids. You know, my kids' perspective is different too. There'll be times where I'm, you know, walking around or whatever, just at Fred Meyer's grocery shopping, and someone will come up to me and just say, "You are amazing." And I'll just like, "Oh, thank you." And they're like, I just love that you're just doing your thing. You're just living your life. You're raising your kids. You're out grocery shopping. You've got a big smile on your face. That's awesome. And that's, I guess, what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. Yeah, you're so right. Like, you don't need to go run a marathon after surgery and what you've gone through. Like, no, you're so right. Just you being you is inspiring, because you could have taken the branch of my life's over. I hate having prosthetics. I hate that I couldn't carry my own child. I hate all. You could have gone in so many different directions, but your attitude shift, and even just waking up saying, I'm just thankful to be alive.
Yep.
Obviously something happened while you were there that you came back and made the best of it. And you were living this great life with your family. You're carrying on the same traditions that your father, did with you.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, I guess you could, go ahead.
Well, yes, but it takes work though. Like, it takes a lot of work on my part to live that life. I mean, counseling, I mean, I still see a counselor because I need someone to kind of like tell me, okay, you're the one that's in charge here. Like, you're in charge of your own happiness. If you're not happy with something, you have to change it. It's up to you. Things don't just happen to your life and they just magically just get better. So it's a lot of work too. It's a lot of like self, digging and, why do I feel that? Why am I angry about that? That's, what's it about me that makes me angry? Or, so I'm constantly like working on things for myself to make my life happy.
How long do you think it took before you felt more normal? Like, just like your normal self?
Yeah. I would say 5 to 8 years before I was starting to like really come into my own. I feel like this year's been a real shift for me. I'm taking my own advice that I tell my kids. My kids tell me like, so-and-so's mean to me. And I'm like, well, then don't be friends with them. Go play with somebody else. Like, don't waste your energy on that. Just be kind and be nice, but you don't have to be best friends with them. So I'm trying to like take my own advice that I'm telling my kids, and like, I'm picking my circle. I'm picking the time that I spend with people. If I don't want to do something, I'm not going to do it. If I'm not being like rude about it, I'm just saying, if it doesn't come from like a good place to do something, I'm not going to do it. And I don't feel bad or guilty about it. And I was at school the other day and I was wearing these pants, and this girl was like, oh man, those pants are cute, but I don't think I could pull those off at all. And I thought to myself, like, I don't care what, like, I really don't care what people,
don't care.
She was saying like,
I like these pants, I'm wearing them.
Yeah. And they're like, the kind of the barrel jeans, they're kind of like,
yes. I actually was going to order a pair myself. So I'm glad you have a pair, because
they're awesome.
I like them.
They're awesome.
I love them.
Yeah. She was like, I don't think I could pull that off. And I was thinking to myself, like, I love that I don't give a shit what people think. Like, I mean, I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm not like rude about it, but like, if someone doesn't like my pants, okay, I do. Okay. And here's the deal. Yeah. And this is what I tell my kids. I have metal legs. I can do whatever I want. If I want to wear MC Hammer pants, I can wear MC Hammer pants. If I want to, you know what I mean? Like, I tell my kids, like, jokingly, I just say that. I just say, listen, I get to bend the rules a little bit. I have metal legs. So if I want to wear a jumpsuit or a pantsuit instead of a dress to like a fancy dinner, I get to do that. I got metal legs. I can do that. So I just kind of make light of it and just kind of own it,
But to your point too is, when you go through something, it's a very eye-opening experience, and you came back for a reason, and we all get just one go at this life on earth. Yep. So you're right. Like, don't give a fuck about this, that, or like the things that don't matter.
It doesn't matter.
At the end of the day, like, who cares what pants you're wearing? Yeah. Or if a friendship doesn't serve you, then leave that friendship. Yep. Or like, you have to be in charge of your happiness.
Yeah. 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 And just, I think I'm more like my mom. I'm a little more like sensitive, and I take things personally, and I'm trying to be more like my dad and be like, no, nope, I don't like that. Or, he would just stand up for himself and say, no, I don't think so. You're not going to treat me like that. And so I'm trying to find a balance, So I'm learning, but I feel like I just had such a good childhood and such a good upbringing that I feel like that's where I'm at because of that. So I can't take full credit for it. So that's what I'm trying to do for my kids. I'm trying to, me and my husband are trying to do that for our kids because we know how important it is.
It comes full circle.
Yep.
The only last thing I wanted to touch on, I made a note of, was the magazine in your room.
Oh, yeah.
And how it's just like one of those meaningful coincidence moments.
Yeah.
That, like, it's so interesting that magazine was in your room at the exact time that you were going through some. Can you talk us through that? Because that would be like a good note to end on happy things.
So remember when we had magazines and we used to all read magazines, right? This was Shape magazine. And Jillian Michaels was on the front of it, I think. And it was December 19th issue. And my mom was reading it. And I was recovering from amputation surgery, so I was out of it. I was on so much pain meds during the time I was there that by the time my amputation surgery came, my body wasn't even responding. So my mom had to sit on my bed and push my button every 8 minutes for my pain meds because I couldn't push it because my fingers were all bandaged up. And so my mom laid on my bed and pushed my pain button for 8 minutes or every 8 minutes. And she was reading this magazine,
19 again.
Yep, 2011. And there was an article in there, and it was about a gal who got sepsis, was pregnant, and it talked about her whole story. And it was very similar to mine, pregnant, water broke, sepsis, spirals, out of control. And then her baby actually survived. She was a little further along than I was. So her baby survived. But because of the sepsis, she lost both legs below the knee, like me. She lost one arm above the wrist and one finger on the other hand and her eyesight. So she became blind, both legs, one arm, one finger, and she got her baby. Her baby was fine. Everything was fine with the baby. And my mom just was like freaking out when she read this. She's like, oh my God, this is what happened to Amaia. So she contacted the husband. There was an email, and she contacted the husband, and the husband got back to her with Carol. Her name's Carol, with Carol's phone number. And one day I was getting ready for dialysis. I was at home. I was doing outpatient dialysis. I had to do it 3 times a week, and I hated it. And I called her, and we literally talked for like 2 hours straight. Like we were best friends, and we'd known each other all our lives. It was crazy. It was nuts. We talked about clothing. We talked about, food. We talked about families. We literally talked about so many things, and we became such good friends, and we're still good friends to this day. I call her when I'm having a bad day. She calls me when she's having a bad day. And it's kind of ironic because I look at her story as more tragic than mine, right? Because she got the baby, but she never got to see the baby. She doesn't have the eyesight to see her kids. And then I lost the baby, and she sees my story as more tragic. So we're perfect for each other, right? Because she sees me as like, gosh, Amaia has it worse off than I did. And then I see her as, gosh, Carol has it worse off. You know what I mean? So we're very good friends. We met about a year after she was with her family at the beach and invited our family over, or invited me and my husband over, and we met, and it was awesome. We're just like kindred spirits. We've known each other our whole lives. Yeah.
I just feel like that was meant to be.
Totally.
That December 19th magic number issue in the right place at the right time for your mom to read that. I just, there has to be, that's just not a coincidence, in my opinion.
Yeah. No.
It's like a forever friend that was supposed to be in your life.
Yep.
I love that.
Yeah.
Amaia, your story. You made me cry. I'm sorry. I'm probably going to do this all the time. I'm such a baby.
Well, you're an empath.
Everything.
You're an empath.
I am. Yep. I'm probably not the perfect host for this show.
No, that makes you the perfect. That actually makes you the perfect host, actually. Yeah.
I know my sister's coming on, and she's like, I think I'm all cried out. I think I can share my story with my son. And I was like, I couldn't even hardly speak out the words to tell the story without crying.
Right.
But
right. Oh gosh. Crazy.
I think, time passes, and she's like, I think I can do it. But I'm so thankful that you were kind enough to share your story. I know you're not out there trying to yell it from the rooftops, but I really hope to touch people.
Yeah.
And that there is something more, and I just love it. I loved every part of it. And I love you as a person. Aww. And I know we haven't talked in years, but like, I actually found the picture of me and you from kindergarten that I was telling you about.
Oh my God.
I found it. I will take a picture of it and I'll text you after this interview.
Do.
I found it, and you're putting my almost there button.
Oh my
4th grade.
Gosh, that's amazing. Oh,
yes.
Wow.
I know. We go way back.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
But again, I feel like people are kind of put in your life, and like, it's like you've been sprinkled in my life since the earliest of days, before I even went to school. Yeah. Like from the little church behind our apartments, and then grade school. And then we were on dance team together.
And then
in high school.
And then I worked with your mom.
Yes. Yeah. You worked at the salon of my mom's.
Yeah.
So
crazy.
Yeah. It is just wild, but
oh my goodness. It's crazy how people come in and out of your life,
Yep.
And everyone's going through, that's what I tell my kids. Everybody is going through something, you just can't see it. You literally, you gotta that's what I keep telling them. Don't judge. And just, the thing with me is you can see my struggles, right? You see me and you're like, that girl's been through some stuff. But there's a lot of people that have been through stuff and they don't show it. It's just, it's there, but we don't see it. So that's why I'm trying to tell my kids to try to be nice, and be compassionate towards people, because you never know what's going on the inside.
Well, those are certainly some very wise words and a good way to end this episode. As always, thank you so much for supporting the show. If you have a story to share, please email me at nextrealmpodcast@gmail.com. And if you were inspired by Amaia's story, please consider clicking the link in the show notes to support the American Cancer Society in honor of her father, or Limbs for Life, a nonprofit dedicated to providing fully functional prosthetic care for individuals who cannot otherwise afford it. Take care, friends, and we'll see you on the next show.